So what affects power? Well, power is affected by several factors. Okay, we're not going to look at all of them. We're just going to look at the ones which are most basic and most easy to check. Okay, the first one obviously is how big the difference in the population is. Remember, the power is computed under the assumption that there is a difference. Okay, we may not know what the difference is, but we may be hoping for a certain difference. We may hope that a certain new treatment is so much different from the old treatment in terms of its effectiveness and so on. So if the existence difference is big, that's going to make the power large. Just to overemphasize this point, or clarifying, hopefully. Okay, here is a little picture. Let's say if I'm asking you to check if those two lines are actually two separate lines with the difference in between. If those lines are so far away as you can see right now, then it's easy to say in fact, that they are different, that they're different lines. You can even look at this computer screen from quite a distance, and you'll still be able to see that there is a difference. Now, if the two lines in fact turn out to be closer, then it may be a little bit more difficult to see if there is a difference between them, and depending on the screen that you're using to see this video, or maybe the resolution with which I'll be able to upload it, you may or may not be able to see the difference. So depending on the sample that you're using to see this video. Okay, what about this one? Do you see that? Do you think that there is a difference? Well, I can tell you there is, because I designed those two lines and I put them in place and I made sure that they're not in the same place. But as you can tell, it is very difficult to see the difference because the difference is not very big. The other factor that affects the power is actually how big the sample size is. Okay, so the bigger the sample size, the greater the power. Why is that? Well, of course, the bigger the sample size, the more information we have about the two populations, and therefore the better we're going to be able to figure out that there is a difference if there is one. Okay, it's sort of like looking at something very small but of interest through some appropriate tools. Okay, for some things it's enough to have a small information, a small amount of information. Maybe a magnifying glass is enough to find out what's going on our table. Okay, but on the other hand, if we have a bigger tool to rely on, so bigger size of lens, okay, so we go to a microscope, then of course the power of magnification is going to be bigger, and therefore we're going to be able to see differences that we may not have been able to see with a magnifying glass. And if that is not even enough, then we may need to rely on a really big sample size, which would correspond to something like this, which I'm not sure if you have seen it before, but it's an electron microscope. Alright, now the other factor that affects the power is actually the testing procedure that we're going to use. We haven't seen yet how to go from the data to the p-value, but that's where the testing procedure comes in, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time on that later on. But there are some testing procedures which are more powerful than others, and therefore in every situation you may want to use the most powerful one. However, you want to be careful with how much power you put into a test. Some tests are too powerful, okay? And you want to be careful in analyzing and making conclusions from tests which have been too powerful. What's the problem with that? Well, some tests, some statistical tests, remember that's what we're talking about, may be so powerful that they may reveal differences so small as to have no clinical value. Remember, there is a difference between statistical significance and practical significance, right? So some tests may be so powerful that they're able to identify differences which are so small that really don't make any difference from the practical point of view. So you want to avoid that.